Hello, welcome back, everybody, to another year of the Sunday Podcast.
I'm Ollie Lum.
And I'm Matt Seddon.
Back in 2025 for our 5th season. You can expect more of this.
He's claiming that he was ill before the semi-final, whatever. But, you know, I just feel like at that point he was just looking for attention.
And some of this.
Elio normally say, no human is limited. So I can't limit myself, or I can't just say I can do.
As well as event coverage around all the major races on the UK circuit.
And if you're a fan of the pod, please give us a rating and review on your preferred podcast streaming service.
And if you want to stay up to date with all the latest news, give us a follow on Instagram at Sunday Podcast.
As always, thanks for listening. See you next time. And we hope you enjoyed the episode.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Sunday Podcast, brought to you guys by sportshoes.com. As always, look, Matt and I don't know how we've done it. We've spent from 2 p.m. till 7 p.m. together, not managed to record a podcast, and now we're recording online like we normally do. But we were hoping to bring you a bit of we were hoping to be in the same room, weren't we, today? But we've not quite managed it. Too much narrowing, too much to catch up on in the running world and the working world, I guess, in our lives. But we're here previewing Eurocross on the weekend. Mate, where do you want to start? Because I can't believe it's come around again. We were just talking about how good last year's Eurocross was. What are we expecting from this weekend? How excited are you? Obviously, look, you've got a couple athletes on a team yourself, so slightly different perspective as well this year.
Oh, it is, mate. And it has come around again. Cross-country season here, and actually it's here and it's here to stay, because obviously we've got the World Cross coming up on the 10th of January in Tallahassee. And I think for a lot of people in those senior teams and probably in those under 20 teams as well, obviously there's no under 23 age group, but this is a chance to get on that plane to Tallahassee and, so how well they do. And if we can have, our women just always dominate at Eurocross, from a team perspective and, once upon a time individually as well. And with Megan Keith on the team, they're looking very strong. But I think, for a lot of athletes, this might, because of when World Cross falls, I think on the 10th of Jan, it's just the other side of Christmas. No one's getting indoors just yet. And, I think a lot will want to actually participate in that. I think I'd be surprised if people at Euros decide that World Cross isn't for them, given that it's only 3 weeks, or I guess 4 weeks after Europeans. You may as well hold that shape and go and do what is arguably the hardest race in the world.
Oh, mate, absolutely. And I think the timing's a bit nicer for athletes. I think when it's in March, sometimes there's the excuse, it's going to interrupt my prep for the track season. I'm going to have to delay getting sharp for my openers. No, there's no excuse this time. It's going to be a super tough but super fast course in January. Great venue. Test yourself against the best in the world and see where that lands. And look, that's the World Cross, but some of the best in the world will be at the Europeans, also certainly people who want to be world class. And should we get our teeth stuck into it? Mate, let's talk about the course first, because we expect it to be dry and we expect it to be pretty quick, which is not what we've seen over the past few years at Europeans.
Well, last year was pretty firm and fast. To be fair, I know there was a couple softish sections, but for the most part, it was pretty good running. But obviously, Brussels was hideous, and Turin the year before that was obviously soft, muddy at points, and then just an extremely tough hill. Turin had that wow factor. It had a lot of the best kind of cross-country elements included in that race. That was the one where they ran through that house. And then obviously before that, 2021 in Dublin was a fantastic course. The atmosphere was fantastic. So the last few editions have been very good. I think last year was probably the most boring course that we've had in a long time in the European cross-country. This one on the weekend won't be boring. And it's just very, very twisty. And I think I shared an image a little while back of it, but it's kind of a go-kart track in many ways. And actually, when you look closer, I saw a few videos online. Obviously, the Portuguese champs were there, but saw a few videos of the Portugal team training. And it's compact in parts, yes, but actually it's like that loose, I wouldn't call it sand, but just loose soil for a lot of it. And I'm just wondering, for some of those who are, look, they're all cross country runners at the end of the day, but for some of those athletes who are perhaps a little bit more power based, just relying on that speed and that force a little bit more, they might struggle. They might begin to tire out there, because there are quite a few sections which look loose. But hey, look, we're not out there. We're not on the course. This is just my observation from video footage. But it is extremely twisty. And on the twists, mate, it always makes me wonder, European cross countries are always quite twisty. They snake, they turn a lot. And, we go back to thinking about how Liverpool can tweak their course. I looked at the German champs as well. They're putting hay bales down in the German champs, a little bit like we do at Cardiff Cross. And we think about how Liverpool can, not being right as a trial, because sometimes it's too muddy and the Euros is always on firm ground, whatever. But also, I think you have got to get creative, because a lot of Eurocross courses are very twisty. And again, that's a different skill in itself, being able to handle those turns at pace with large numbers around you. There's just a lot of accelerating and decelerating. So I guess that's going to be the main challenges from the course. Look, there's a few mounds in there as well, but I think it will, each lap is a K.5 or just under. And I do think the course is challenging enough to be a true run cross country race. But the distances, on the other hand, that's a different story. I mean, I never liked it when they went to 7.5K last year to equal things up on the men's and women's side. And obviously the under 20s are going to be just under 6K, and under 23s just under 6K, and the under 20s, I think they're 4.4K, something like that. So there's your distances and there's your course.
Yeah, you mentioned Cardiff Cross, and that's probably the only one in the UK where we have a real twisty technical section of it. Obviously not the whole course. There are some big football pitches, essentially, or rugby pitches, I should say, in Cardiff. Yeah, nice and twisty. Be good for spectators, like you say, nice and short laps, and we expect it to be pretty sandy laps. But yeah, like you said, again, we will see on Saturday how it actually looks. And you mentioned obviously some of those, I guess, power-based athletes, perhaps struggling. Like we were just speaking before we started recording, and you got the likes of Guillemot in there, like the European indoor champion on the women's side over 1,500 meters, deciding to contest this race. And you're just talking about, I guess, potentially how I would love to see some of our top British athletes go and attempt to make some of these teams. I'm not saying they would.
They wouldn't.
But is that the difference? Is that the difference between?
That's the difference. Yeah, I think that that French team is a little bit weaker on the women's side, and yeah, I think the bottom line is, if France did push out all of their top steep plus 5K runners and stuff, it would be a bit different. But I just think their team is weaker, and actually, I look at any of our 1,500 women, any of our sort of mid distance runners, men and women's side, they wouldn't get near the Eurocross team in the senior races. That's fact. So that's why they don't do it. But I do take your point. Maybe it would be fun to entertain the idea of, I guess you could compare someone like Guillemot to Georgia Bell or someone like that. Like, could we see them up there? But yeah, there's no way she'd be featuring with, Megan Keith, Poppy Tan, Kizzy Fry, Carrie Hughes. That's on the mud. But that's a debate for another day. Maybe we'll be debating that next year at Liverpool. Maybe Georgia Bell's listening to this going, actually, I fancy myself. I'm going to prove you boys wrong.
Oh, what that bike strength? You never know.
And of course, she is very, very quick, over 3,000 as well. But yeah, that's a good point on the women's race. Let's start. I mean, on the women's race, I think, look, Battlecletti is going to just run away with that. She's done it all. She's won it all. Under 20s, under 23s. She's had a terrific season, and yeah, she's in great shape. She already put away Megan Keith by some margin already, and I think she's gonna dominate that women's race. But we'll get more into that. We'll start with the men first, mate, and we'll just start to go through some of the big names that we'll look out for. I mean, Belgium, John Heymans, you look at their team, not as strong as it could have been. Isaac Kimeli was due to run, but I think a late dropout. He's not on this. Well, I'm referring to these final entries that got published just 2 days ago, and Kimeli's not on there. So Belgium's team is obviously hampered. Kimeli fourth last year. What was he? I actually watched back 2018 when he got second to Ingebrigtsen. That was a great race. Those two, Philip Ingebrigtsen won that one in the Netherlands in Tilburg. And so, yeah, he's always been a feature in these senior men's races. Obviously, around Brussels, didn't like the mud so much there. But, and Belgium have always put in a pretty good, you think about Hendricks and stuff, a pretty strong team. And they featured the last couple of years on the podium. But, yeah, no Kimeli. So I think their team's damaged a bit. Spain. I mean, Lum, why don't you go with your favourite? Lum's saying that Ireland are going to going to sweep, and Ireland have got the strongest team out there, he reckons.
Well, I just think like, and this goes back to my point, and it's not necessarily 1 in 1,500 runners in there. And again, this is nothing, I'm not knocking some of the other teams, but for the Irish team to have Ephraim Gidey, Darragh McElhenney and Brian Fay, and it's only 3 to score. And that is such a strong three.
Team.
And I said to, look, Matt's referring to, I said off air that I don't think any of the Brits are as good as those three. Maybe Ephraim. I think, but for me, Darragh and Brian Fay, maybe that's me being track biased, right? Maybe that's me being 5,000 meter biased, but I don't see any of that British team beating those two.
Yeah, I think you're probably getting a bit carried away, putting a lot of weighting on that 5K. And look, Darragh and Beattie's basically run the same as a pair of them. Over 5K, given he did it in Boston anyway. So, look, you got to be careful what you say, mate. We counted out Macau at Liverpool. And there was
we got a lot of Irish listeners, though.
We suffered.
The stats, mate. We've got a lot of Irish listeners, so I've got to keep them happy too.
We suffered some serious backlash, but no, I think those 3 Irish lads, if it's, I was surprised how poorly Gidey ran at the Irish champs, but it was extremely muddy. I think he was their 5th or 6th man. Don't quote me on that. I will just double check that. But I was surprised how much he struggled there. But I think this is a completely different ballgame. It's 7.5K. It's flat. It's firm. He's going to be in a great place. His 10K is phenomenal. And yeah, so I think he is definitely going to feature towards a sharp end. Also, I think everyone is going to benefit from the fact that Jakob will not be dictating things. Does that change? Does that change the race a little bit without Jakob in there? Originally, I was like, definitely. But then Gressier obviously being confirmed now after his win in Geneva, which is quite it's a real historic twisty race. The fans are amazing. That race is fantastic and he loves it. He's done it on a few occasions. And, I think Gressier in this race will give the same effect that Jakob will. He's a world champion. He's in insane form. He's the fastest over 5K, fastest over 10K. Like, the guy's a beast. And I think everyone will be keying off him. So people will be watching him and letting Gressier dictate things. That's my personal opinion.
Not just that, mate. The guy loves
to
the show. And I feel like he will go into this. You mentioned he's now on the top spot on the world stage, let alone on a European stage. And I think he was never shy of making entertainment out of the race, even when he was almost a pretender. And now he's got the opportunity to do that as the real deal, as the world champ. And I think he'll try and entertain the crowd and make this really special and will really take things by the scruff of the neck.
Yeah, and he's a beast on the country, right? He's got insane history over the country. He's won multiple titles and he's always featured towards, what was he, 3rd in 2021, I think the last time he did it actually in Dublin, and just third behind Jakob on that occasion. And that was when he was still developing into the world champion he is today. And he will make it exciting. So, yeah, I think people will key off of him, but do we expect him to make sort of a bold move and try run away with this? I think so. Looking at Gressier, there's been some great races with Gressier, not just at European level, but even sort of last year at the French cross champs, he had a fantastic duel with Jan Scrub, and they would go after it. And I think Gressier on the country he does back himself. He's confident, and especially on the road as well. You look at what he did at the European half marathon champs earlier in the spring when he just ran away. Talk about Ephraim. Ephraim was on his shoulder for a large part of that race until Gressier sort of continued to run away from him. And I think, yeah, when he's fit and he's confident, he will try and test people and run away. But whether he's quite in that sort of shape that he was in the sort of early part of last year, and obviously carried that through and continued to get better into the summer, because he was doubts and he was deciding whether he wanted to do the Euros. But what a way for him to cap off his year. He is obviously doing the World Cross, so he sees the Euros as a stepping stone. We're going to see Gressier at the World Cross Country Champs against Jacob Kiplima. I mean, what a matchup.
Yeah.
Who else to mention?
We've got a couple winning Gressier in that French team. Hugo Hay. We mentioned track runners who've got decent caliber. He's certainly one of them. And this is where I go back to the Irish team. I think a lot of teams they have one or two sort of in this caliber of athletes that we're sort of talking about. Not many have 3, 4, right? And in terms of that team title, so Hugo Hay's in there with the French. Obviously, you mentioned Ingebrigtsen earlier, Philip Ingebrigtsen winning a a few years ago now, but
Years ago now.
contesting. I'm not sure what we'll see from him. I'm sure everyone's disappointed that Jakob's not going to be there. The organisers certainly must be as well. He's plastered all over the promo still with Battlecaletti, but he won't be there, unfortunately.
Wants to focus on 2026. Do you reckon we'll see him at the World Cross? That would be a storyline. I think obviously he just wants to make sure he's healthy and doesn't want to. When you look at the course map, you do look at it and you think, oh, if you've got a dodgy Achilles, that thing will snap it. That's for sure. Like that, it's some of the turns and just the constant twist, the constant just rolls, these little mounds and stuff. But you're right, Hugo Hey, very strong. You know, I think when I look at this Eurocross, you know, compared to last year where you had Ingebrigtsen, Cripper, who got third? Was it Thierry Ndikamenayo? You had Kimeli, Almgren. You had a just phenomenal array of talent last year. And you know, bar Gressier, I actually don't see, everyone else is just very accomplished. And this is why our Brits, you know, we'll get onto the Brits now, especially BT and Leonard, they don't need to fear, and I think all of our team, they don't need to fear anyone because there is just a bunch of 27-40 to 28 low men in this race. And that's who's in this. And you look at that French team. Yeah, of course, you've got Gressier and Hay, and Pau Cal, by the way, who ran 27:31, I think, in Lille. There's a couple, and Sarah Lati ran quick in Lille as well. So a couple who ran quick in the Lille 10K back in mid-November. But other than that, you know, and yes, you got Ndikamenayo, and you've obviously got the Irish lads, but they're no better than our Brits. You got Magnus Meyer, who is a fantastic athlete over the 5 and the 10, and also on the country when it's muddy. Labalu is obviously a great one, but for me, he hasn't quite lived up to his track potential on the country. He's never quite converted his sort of track pedigree that we saw, especially at the Euros in 2024, to the country. So I think from a British stamp, we can certainly get amongst the medals. And I think if we get amongst the medals, it's a very promising sign for our Brits. And as a governing body, British Athletics, if our British team medal, you take all of those guys to the World Cross Country Championships. Because if our British team is good enough to medal at the Europeans, how can you say they're not good enough to go and compete at a World Championships? That would be my argument. That would be my argument in the women's race. And obviously, you know, those junior races as well. But, you know, we know what British athletics are like, and they might not.
Yeah, I think they're basing more off individuals and where they finish, despite maybe the team doing well. And yeah, mate, you mentioned Ndikamenayo, also joined by Michel, Adele's brother. We know he's a rising talent as well over in the Spanish team. And I think you're right though in terms of it's the Brits have, well, as per usual, our whole team like could almost finish in any order in a way. I think obviously like, Scott and Rory are probably like the paper. They're the ones in form, but Callum Johnson comes in with like extreme cross country pedigree. I'm not sure this course suits him maybe as much as something a bit muddier, but I'm sure he's wanting to rewrite that reputation a bit as well, rather than just being like the sort of guy that is good when it's a slow or tough course, you know.
Yeah, I think what cross country gives a lot of our boys and a lot of people in general, and that's why I'm just a big fan of it, is because you look at Leonard last year, he comes ninth to the European Cross Country Championships against a stacked top 10. And I just think the confidence that gave him to go on and run that British record over the 10K, to go on and have the sort of the next 6 months period that he had, this is almost like twilight period that he had. Wow. And to give him the confidence again this year to sort of come back and be a contender. And I think cross country is just so pure. It's just about getting as close to the man ahead, you know, next to you, or beating the man next to you. And I think, you know, Leonard came off of that Eurocross and he was like, oh my God, like, you know, Almgren is only just up the road. You know, I've been sprint finishing with Thierry Ndikamenayo or Kimeli, or, you know, I can't quite remember who he lost out to on the sprint finish, but he was with those guys for, you know, 99% of the race and just lost out on the last 100 or 200. And, you know, you look at those guys' PBs and they're 27 flat men or they're 26.50 men. And it's like, well, if they're doing that, what can I go do? And I think the confidence it gives you, if you pop a good one at these Europeans, to go on and do and sort of take on the rest of the year going into 2026, I think is astounding. And I think a lot of our boys should look at that and just be like, look, and our women, of course, I would say they're a lot more accomplished than on the men's side. But yeah, can they look at that and just go, look, wherever I can come here, it's going to show me what I can go and do in the summer. Because there are a lot of men who are, you know, under that 28 minutes for 10K. And if you can compete with them, it shows you what you can go and do on the road or on the track.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I guess before we start getting into those women's races, because yeah, you're right. The women's team comes with super experience, not just at a European cross, but in general in major championships and performing at the highest level. Let's wrap up those last few of the men's entries. Chipinelli's in there. Jonas Race is in there for Switzerland, and that pretty much.
Got a few Turks. Simmons Sundstrom's a decent steepler, but yeah, it does, to be honest. And you know, one thing I hated when when European athletics moved to 3 to score, I hated it because all it does is encourage teams to take less people. You know, surprisingly, Germany taking 2 runners. Germany, and they're not even that good either.
I think GB, France, Spain, Ireland have reserves. No one else does.
No one else does, and we're one of the I think those countries you just listed are the only countries with 6 as well. You know, a lot of countries just having 4, 5. So, hey, should we move on to the women's race, or do you want to go through the age groups? Just move on to the women's race.
Yeah,
I guess
let's talk about the women because, like we just mentioned, a stellar GB team, and of course we're gonna have to chat about Megan Keith because. After we shared our thoughts on the trial, and we're not saying Megan Keith wouldn't have made the team, but after missing the trial to go race somewhere else, what is the acceptable performance then for Megan Keith? Do you know what I mean? Because you got to go and perform now. For me, go like prepping like that.
Pressure's on for Keith.
I think it is.
I guess the pressure is probably more on for her to beat the Brits. I think, that's probably where the pressure is, and she you know, she's a professional. I don't think she'll see it like that. You know, can the Brits do the best they can? But yeah, you could argue maybe if one of the Brits does beat her, then you know that sort of move to let her go race abroad just didn't pay off, and kind of shows that BA just should have moved sneaky like that. But I think the chances of that happening very, very slim. And, you know, I think for Megan, this is all about how close she can get to Battlecletti. We were just saying about her in the men's side. I think it's Eurocross can really set you up for the next 12 months. It can give you a real swagger and confidence to what you can go on and do. You know, depending on who you beat, there's a lot of scalps. You know, very rarely you get in a race and there's 15, 20 people that if you beat, you know, it's a serious scalp that you could be pleased with. And I think the Eurocross offers that opportunity. But for someone like Megan Keith, is how close can she get to Battlecletti? I mean, that's going to give her the confidence going into what is going to be a European champs and what is probably going to be, you know, someone who is going to sweep the title. Whatever Battlecletti decides to do at the Europeans, you would hang the gold medal around her neck if she doesn't get injured or anything like that. That's Megan Keith's objective, and it's not going to be easy. You know, we'll talk through. You know, like I said, I think the frustrating thing for Megan is it gets closer and closer to a 5K. Battlecletti is exceptional over the 5K. She has incredible turnover, and she is extremely fast on a sprint finish as well. She's proven that. So I think the fact it's only 5K probably doesn't favour Megan. The fact it's on firm surface as well probably doesn't favour Megan once again, but. We'll see what she can do. And there are a few women to look out for. Like I mentioned before, Sara Lahti of Sweden ran inside 31 minutes on the roads a few weeks ago in Lille. Diane Van Ness as well, the very, very fast Dutch woman sort of leading their team. We've got No Grovdal, of course. Yasmin Khan is also another one to watch out for. But, you know, you do look at it and you do think Chloe Herbier, interestingly, obviously 2:20 in Valencia is on the entries for the European Cross Country Championships, the Belgian athlete, after setting that Belgian record just on Sunday. So I would be stunned to see her line up. But if she does, and you would probably say, well, she's not going to be recovered. She's not going to be be able to put up much of a fight, especially over 7.5K. But I guess you could never count her out.
Yeah, mate. And also just, you mentioned Megan Keith trying to chase Battlecletti in that Italian team as well. Eliza Palmero, who came obviously to the UK, won that Birmingham 10,000 meter track race with a dust up with Megan Keith. I know Keith obviously coming back from injury, I think her second race back, and went on to improve, of course. But again, strong athletes from around Europe for her to contend with. And also strong athletes in that British team for her to contend with. Obviously, Abby Donnelly, you expect her to be more fresh than she was at Liverpool. You mentioned their athletes coming off a week ago. Abby Donnelly's now had plenty of weeks to get back, feeling her best. Carrie Hughes, the buzz of winning that Liverpool race. Can she go and capitalize on this? Can she go and peak for this rather than having peaked 3 weeks ago, maybe? And then you got like obviously Izzy Fry in there as well, Poppy Tank, Phoebe Anderson, all willing to go there. And I expect these girls to be pretty close to each other. I think Megan Keith is, of course, a favourite in terms of leading that British team. But again, similar to the men, outside of that, what order do they finish in? Who knows?
Yeah, I got to admit, that women's team. I mean, Phoebe Anderson ran exceptionally well last year. Obviously, she won the under-23s. I think, showing she can do it over a sort of short, fast cross-country course. So I would probably expect her to feature. I think, it was Poppy Tank and Carrie Hughes who were obviously doing battle at Liverpool, and I almost think this is a race for Izzy Fry, obviously Megan Keith that we mentioned, and possibly Phoebe Anderson as well, just to turn over a little quicker. Carrie Hughes, I hope this year, she could get back down and sort of churn out a really, really competitive 5K. But obviously that sort of turnover over the 5K isn't quite on the level as someone like Fry, etc., for Hughes at the moment. So, and I think Fry, Liverpool was her first race in a long time, and she'll definitely be building nicely, and she's proven what she can do over the year across. And I look at this women's team, by the way, and I'm just like, man, I think they're favourites for the gold medal. I really do.
Sure.
I know Italy. You could say Italy, perhaps. With the low stick with Battacletti. I think the way this race has got to go for Megan Keith is if Battacletti doesn't take it out and get after it, she's got to do it, because I think she needs to whittle this field down. She needs to make it a bit of a 2-horse race. It's going to be very difficult to shake off Diane Van Es. Obviously, I mentioned of the Netherlands. She was silver in the 10K in 2024 at the Euros, and has run 14:30 something for 5K, their national record holder, very, very good 30 or something for 10K as well. So she is exceptionally fast, and if she comes into this in shape, but what Keith has is she's just a very good head-to-head cross-country runner.
Absolutely, mate. And I think, you bang on. These British girls need to shoot for the top spot. I do think Italy, with the 2 quality athletes they have, though, perhaps have the upper hand. It's just where that third comes in, and really don't have enough knowledge on that team, to be honest, to make that call. But the Brits certainly with the depth across all 6.
Yeah, I need to do some digging. We'll get chatting, but I might dig into how many British medals we've won on that women's side, and how many golds in the team that we've swept over the last few years. Honestly, it definitely feels like it, and yeah, I would hate to be wrong, but
bet against them, would you? You would not bet against these British against.
No. And again, though, I feel like for a lot of them, potentially this will open the door to the World Cross Country, and it will also. We've always put 2 or 3 inside that top 10, that top 12 in previous years, and I think it's going to be another year where we get that done. To be honest, I think they are the strongest team that we are probably sending out there. Anyway,
should we chat a bit about our junior teams and some of their chances, like the under 20?
Yeah, the under 23s obviously, but for me, like, what's Barnico going to do? Barnico coming back. Can he fight off Nick Griggs? Again, he has a fantastic record against Nick Griggs, and yeah, he's outkicked the guy who is a phenomenal 1500 runner and broken so many Irish records over that distance. But yeah, I mean, does he have the psych on Griggs? I would say Griggs ran very, very well. He was second to Faye at the Irish Cross Champs in the senior men's race, and what was a very, very muddy course. You would probably argue that, does that suit Nick Griggs with his track pedigree? I think he's just a man who can do it on any surface, any time. With Barnico having not really got us too excited at the mile short course in Cardiff, and obviously we didn't see him in Liverpool. I think he's been suffering from some Achilles issues, maybe, or some small injury. That's why we didn't see him in Liverpool. But yeah, is this the year Barnico and Nick Griggs, or shall I say, is this year Nick Griggs finally beats Will Barnico? But it would be. I mean, what Barnico's achieved on the country is absolutely outrageous. This would be his fourth European cross country gold. It's a joke.
He's just. What I'd say with Barnico, though, he never does too much. He always just does enough. That's always gives me confidence going into the big champs. It doesn't matter if we haven't seen the best of him. I always just expect him to be ready. But like you say, if it is injury related rather than a choice to kind of hold back or be in a heavy training block or whatever it is, then it's a slightly different story. But I think most years, Barnicoat just is fairly ordinary for a lot of the season, and then when it really counts, he turns it on.
I mean, he always gets it right, Euro, because I think he's just a guy who loves racing in those environments, you know, in those duels that he finds himself in on the country. He thrives. He absolutely thrives. And, you know, I think Barnicoat is a man who can punch way above his fitness. He can outperform his fitness level. So I don't think he'll be worried about his build up in, you know, you could probably argue last year, you know, when he sort of David Stone runs away from at Liverpool, you're thinking, Barnicoat, maybe he's going to be weaker this year. You know, he's not going to be able to get the job done at Euros, and he still gets the job done. So I think, you know, when you've done it on so many occasions, he knows where he needs to get his body to, and he knows how fit he needs to be to go and win that title, which he's won on so many occasions already. But I will say, Stefan Nielsen, the Dutchman, I was a bit gutted not to see Niels Laros line up, to be honest. That would have been fantastic. But, yeah, for the first time in a couple of years, actually, Laros is passing. His training partner, Nielsen, is doing it. Lillesso is also doing it, the Danishman. But Nielsen is worth talking about. And the reason I say that is just because of, you know, he won gold in the 1500 at the under-23 champs, but also ran 8:20 for the steeple in the summer, and also got a medal, silver, I think it was, at the under-23 championships. And, you know, he's a beast. We know he's got a fantastic 1500 time. He's he's run 3:29, 8:20, as I mentioned. I think his 5K is strong as well. He's definitely a 13:20 guy, if not a 13 teens guy. You know, and he's just getting better and better and better. And obviously we know he trains at Laros. And I think, but for me, he has always underperformed on the country. I think last year he was outside the top 10, and he may have even raced this year already, and it didn't blow me away. So yeah, whether he's going to be a matchup for Barnicoat, we shall see. But I would say he's his next rival as well, alongside Griggs.
I mean, it just shows you, like you said earlier, how much of a level across is, even when the distance is fairly short, as we're going to see on Saturday. It's a leveler, and you can't take, like you say, a 3:29 1500 meters out of context, because that's like saying, well, chuck Whiteman in there and he'll do well, but we know that's not the case.
Yeah. So I think that that under-23 race on the men's side is, I think whenever you see an under-23 age group, it just doesn't quite have the same depth that the under-20s or the seniors have, because it falls just in between the two. And I think that's probably fair to say. So you get those real generational stars at the pointy end, and then of course you have very, very high caliber of athletes. But I think what you don't have is the sort of 5 to 10 people all sort of vying for those podium spots.
Yeah, I think you're right there, and I guess that's where on the women's side we'll focus on the under-20s. And Ines Fitzgerald and see what she can do, because she's someone that I wonder how well she would perform in the senior race already.
Well, mate, she's got the same PBs as,
the summer she had on the track, and you got to think she's there or thereabouts. And can anyone touch her under 20 European level?
Yeah, no way, mate. I don't think. You know, I think the one, you know, I was going to say, you know, the one thing that people might hope and cling on to is the fact it's 4.5K, but, you know, I mean, Ines has run 8:30 for 3,000. Yeah, she's run 8:30 for 3,000. So, yeah, I really think Ines runs away with this, and everyone will just try and get as close to her as possible. And we know she's aggressive from the front. I think she'll be a little cautious maybe on the first lap or two, just to not. Basically, she just can't outrun herself. You know, she can probably, the only way she loses this race is if she just outruns herself and just overextends early on, you know, trying to do too much, trying to put down too much of a marker. But, you know, I think if she's measured through the first lap or so, and then she can start to just apply that sustained pressure and run away from things a little bit. And I think that'll definitely be her game plan.
I certainly expect her to do that, and I think she'd probably have a shout of taking down the under-23 race, to be honest, as well, if she was in it.
Mate, Yeah, I think it would be cool to see her in the senior race. But look, we're going to get that matchup in possibly next year. Going forward, I think unfortunately Inez is not an under 20.
Liverpool next year will be Liverpool next year. She'll be in that.
How about this? Do you pick Inez Fitzgerald for the senior team at the World Cross Country Championships?
I mean, if she wins, and depends how everyone else does, right? Depends how the other seniors do, and
that is a decision that, and we know BA love to, you know, I think it's an easy decision for BA if she does want to go, because they say, you know, we want to give her the opportunity to experience, you know, and I think,
yeah, and quite,
for me,
for
me, it would be a hands down yes, because obviously she's experienced the World Championships this year. You know, she's had that senior experience. She's world class on a senior level. Her PBs are better than probably anyone who's on the track who's wanted to go to the World Cross Country Championships. And not that you should measure people on the track PBs, but it's just showing another layer to her class.
Yeah.
So I think, and I wonder if she would be interested. It would be cool to see her there. But her nearest rivals, Julia Earle of Germany, very good, medaled at Euro on the track, and obviously on the mountains as well. She's a bit of a talent, kind of reminds me of Klosterhalfen back in the day. Norway have a fantastic team. They have multiple medalists from the European Under-20 Championships, Nygaard as well, perhaps being their favourite, and a couple Turks as well who will threaten. So to be honest, I think, you know, those under-20 matchups are a little wide open. You've always got people sort of developing. Talking of the under-20 races, mate, they had a flashback from 2016. Alexei Joshka, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, Jimmy Gressier, Mohammed, Cripper, all in the same race.
That's where we always look back, and I think we have like these rose-tinted glasses looking back, and I think the answer is that some of the athletes on Saturday that we maybe don't consider in that caliber, in a few years' time will be there. And it's the point you made earlier that this is a springboard to go and cement yourself as one of those. And when we were watching, like you say, Cripper or Gressier back in the day, they were just good under 20s, and they weren't world class athletes. And now, like you say, Gressier is a world champion. Cripper, I know he didn't quite get it right on the weekend, but he's a world class marathoner. And we're going to see that. We're going to see some world class athletes be made, if you like, or be announced on the world stage.
Mate, I agree with that. The men's under 20s is, you know, we talk about the level of that race that I just mentioned, and you know, the men's. I mean, Moberg is doing it, 3:30 runner. I mean, he's a joke.
1,500 times of some of these kids is ridiculous.
It's mad. He's like,
everyone's a 3:30 runner.
Yeah. Ottfalk, the Swede. He was 2 times medalist at the under-20 champs. Over 3,000 and 5,000. He's just, this absolute beast. Yeah, they're all, you know, low 330 boys, mid 330 boys. Brits should not be scared, though. We do have a very good British team, actually, on that men's side as well. You know, Miles Waterworth. I'm pretty excited to see Alex Lennon. How could you not? The youngster. You always get one, you know, first year under 20, stepping up and sort of getting the job done at Liverpool. And he's very exciting over the country. But unfortunately, we're gonna lose that man next year. He's off to Georgia. So he's gonna be a Georgia Bulldog, mate, Mr. Alex Lennon. But yeah, you know, we have got some incredible lads who can compete and definitely get amongst the team medals. But yeah, the favourites, if you like him, when you sort of look at, you know, where European athletics are sort of predicting the race is going to be, it is between the Scandinavians, man. It's between Ottfalk, it's between Moberg, who we mentioned, Magnus Øyen as well, the Norwegian. On the women's side, the under-20 Norwegians, they are really, look, isn't Henrik and Philip now sort of part of the coaching team and the development squads in Norway, and they're developing machines. And I think, you could see Norway sweep the team title on both the men's and the women's side at the under 20 level. But, and Renders of Belgium as well, fresh off of his European under 20 victory on the track. He's a bit of a freak talent.
It certainly is. Look, we can't forget the mixed relays as well. Obviously, strong British team. As always, Holly Dixon, Callum Elson, Jack Higgins, and Ava Lloyd making up that quartet. They go against a strong Irish team, as I mentioned before, with Cian McPhillips in there, Cosprin in there.
Italy are defending champs, right? Arese is coming back. Zinoni. Now, Italy have submitted like 6 names, but yeah, imagine it's going to be Zanoni, Arese, and a couple of others in there. You're right. Ireland's team is looking extremely strong, mate. Hey, mate, does it beat the Brits? Does it beat the Brits? You know, they might have the flashy
Two
track
brothers
times,
in the Dutch
but
team. I rate that.
Huh?
The Van
Two
Riel,
brothers.
Rick and
But
Robin.
are they Jack Higgins or Callum Helson? You know, Callum Helson, absolute fighter. Jack Higgins, star of the back end of 2025, has had a great cross-country campaign. Ava Lloyd as well, developing, been away. She looks like she's got a really good training block in, just basing that off social media. So absolutely zero factual evidence on that. That's the thing with these days. Everything is misleading. And Holly Dixon as well, also informed. So, you know, I think, you know, we've medaled at this event. I don't want to say every year since it began. I swear we won it in San Marin when it first started, and we're always there or thereabouts to the gold. Last year, we lost out by 2 seconds. I remember, I think we got third in Brussels. It was very muddy. Do you remember Kai Malanga got reeled in? It was extremely muddy. She popped a bit there. But yeah, I want to say that we certainly feature and we certainly get on the podium. That would be a very, very safe bet. But do we win gold? Well, yeah, I think it could be a test between us and Ireland. How cool would that be?
Yeah, it certainly would, mate. And we look forward to that. I think that the problem is not the problem with the relay. The exciting thing, I should say, with the relay is just there's only so much you can do over that sort of distance on that sort of terrain, and it is a limiting factor, right? Like you can't open that much ground.
Well, when you say you can't open that much ground, I think what happens is you actually lose. You just lose ground. Like the people, I don't think it's just if you are slower than someone out on that course, you just have to limit the gap they get on you. I think, especially early on in that race. So you just need to put your last leg runner in the fight. And I think with all those sort of twists and turns, there are going to be a lot of seconds that you can sort of make up out there, but also a lot of seconds that you can probably lose. Those little hurdles that they've got. I mean, people when they see the course on Sunday will know what we're talking about. These little, you know, those ramps as well, the way you negotiate them when you're flat out running over 1K. The first leg is like 1.2K, I think, or 1.3K. First leg's really short, and then they sort of plateau around 1K. You know, when you're running flat out for sort of 3-4 minutes, those things are going to be very, very difficult to take, and you can lose a little bit of time there. But yeah, you're right. It's not moves that get made that you end up running away from people. It's just if you can limit all the areas on the course.
It's just about it's
where
about
you
dying.
lose time. It's a bit like an F1 car.
Yeah,
it is.
I'm not sure.
It is, mate. You just got to look at all the sections on the course and just make sure you don't lose any time. And, you know, there's probably 2 or 3 seconds right there you can get on the person next to you, even if they're just as fit. So I think racing line does come into it over sort of 1.5K. And if you're on that team, you really do have to study that course, because if you get because it's not busy, it's not like you have to fight people, but you just need to make sure that you get a really good racing line on all those turns. I mean, there's so many. There must be 10, 11 turns a lap. Some of them harsher than others. But I think that's what you have to consider. So, yeah, there's a short course. Did we just brief the under 23 women's? Did we mention that? Or did we skip over that one? I know we badgered on about Barnacle.
No, we went straight to the under 20 women. So yeah, mate, let's talk through that British team for the under 23 women. We've got India Barwell in there, Rebecca Flattery, Megan Harris, Emily Parker, Mia Woolman, and B Wood in there as well. So strong team on the under 23 women's side. And again, and I think you mentioned it before, mate, around just the senior women in terms of what are the stats on them getting medals. I'm pretty sure the under 23 women getting team medals on the European stage, again, is a stellar record across the last few years.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure, man, for sure. We always produce, but I think it is just that packing. I mean, Spain have a very good team. They probably have a couple of the two favourites. Ferrero is obviously coming back from last year, second behind Phoebe Anderson, and went on to have a pretty dominant summer, won the under 23 5K as well. So she comes into this in very good form. I think a couple of athletes also to look out for. For me, I always like the look of Torgersen of Denmark. She's been, running very, very well recently, breaking all of their records as an under 20. Perhaps just had a good indoor campaign and then just couldn't quite live up to it. I think, had a few injuries, DNF'd at the under 20s, I think. But when she was moving indoors, She was down running sort of 850 or just inside 850, I think, getting down low 15s over 5K. And yeah, so a very, very accomplished sort of cross-country runner. She's definitely going to be one of the favorites out there alongside the two Spaniards. Yeah, and alongside those Spanish athletes, I think Iona Manonen of Finland is the next one. She was third last year. So you got 2-3 bouncing back from last year. What sort of shape are they in? I mean, you just don't really know. I think it's very, very hard to call what athletes on the continent are up to and how their training's going, because we don't really understand the quality of their national championships, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's it. I mean, yeah, and women's under 23s, I think is, as I mentioned earlier on in the podcast, it's just all about, can our women get as high as possible and beat a lot of these women have competed, obviously, the Euro under 23s on the track, over 5K, they're low 15-minute runners, over 5K, that sort of thing. So it's just going to give them so much confidence going into their next year. But we've got a reasonably young team. But I do look at Megan Harris and Emily Parker and Mia Waldman is very good on muddy ground, but is she going to be as good on this sort of soft compact? She did push out a very good performance last year as well on what was firmer ground in Liverpool, but probably this year is going to be even firmer again in comparison to last year. So, but yeah, Harris impressed me a lot at Liverpool and just think she was looking very strong. I know it was muddy and she is good in the mud, but I think one thing Harris has done, especially this year on the track, is she really cut her 800 time down. She cut her 1500 time down. She spent a bit of time working down to sort of 2:05 over 800, which is, for someone who's going to be operating probably over the 5K this summer, maybe 3K. That was a big step up for her. And again, her 1500 time similar, chopping sort of 4 or 5 seconds off her PB on that one. So I like where Harris is and how well she ran at Liverpool. So I think she can be confident enough to get right up amongst it. I mean, Phoebe Anderson, you could argue, surprised a few last year by dominating in the fashion she did at the end. Great sprint finish. I think Harris and Parker will both look at this as our leading women and go, can we just stay in it for as long as possible? And anything can happen in that last sort of 500-600 meters of the race.
Yeah. Absolutely, mate. And I think that pretty much wraps us up for our entries and for our kind of team races. European Cross goes down this Sunday, 14th of December. Under 20 women are off at 9:30. Under
Local
20
time.
Yeah, which is the same. There's no time zone difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so anyway. So yeah, 9:30 for the under 20 women, 10 o'clock for the under 20 men, 10:26 under 23 women, 11 o'clock under 23 men, 11:30 for the mixed relay, and then the creme de la creme comes at 12 o'clock for the senior women and 12:41 for the senior men.
Fantastic. We'll be watching.
Hey, you getting out there?
Unfortunately not, man. I got Ricky Harvey and Becca Murray's wedding on Saturday that I'm obviously going to, and I'm looking forward to. So that will be my sort of warm up for the European Cross, and then obviously I will carry my celebrations right through the evening into the early hours of Sunday, and I will celebrate whilst watching Eurocross as well. How about that? It's early enough, mate. 9:30 is an early start for those first few races, but it's always a fantastic weekend. I mean, Sundays don't get much better than starting your Sunday watching 6 cross-country races and a short course relay in there as well. So no, very much looking forward to it, but unfortunately not going out there. I'll save that for another year. I'm confident my athletes, Slade and Flaherty, they'll get the job done. I'm very confident in that. So I look forward to watching them on the TV.
There you go. Right. Thanks for listening to us. Enjoy Eurocross. We'll catch you guys very, very soon.